As of today, there's 2.1 million people in the country who have expired or expiring visas. The government doesn't have a plan to have temporary mean temporary. We've seen the asylum system extremely abused. And at the same time, they're still sitting very high levels of immigration without undertaking any sort of reform.
2.9 million people living in Canada on temporary resident, worker, or visitor extension permits have visas that expired last year or they will expire this year, and not including student visas. This according to new data from Immigration, Refugees, and Citizenship Canada. One Edmonton immigration lawyer says he's never seen so many people desperate for immigration help.
I have tissue paper in my office because you don't know the tears that people will genuine tears where people will cry and tell me the harshest stories. Okay. And this is real life. These people are going to pay a heavy price.
Only a fraction of the 2.9 million people living here will get permanent residency. Canada's admissions target was 395,000 in 2025. The Canadian government expects the rest of them to leave. Shawar, who's been doing immigration law for nearly 2 decades, says that's not going to happen.
So we may be facing a situation like we have in the States, where we have ICE officers grabbing people in the US. We'll have CBSA officers grabbing people here. Whether or not that's a good look for Canada is something we have to look at as a nation and think about.
Data from Canada Border Services Agency shows there were more than 30,000 active removal warrants as of December, and more than 22,000 people were removed from Canada within the last year. In a statement, Canadian government spokesperson saying it is important to note that Canada is regaining control of its immigration system in order to restore balance and sustainability. Our approach puts immigration on a responsible path that allows Canada to respond to the needs of communities and fulfill its promise to offer opportunities to those who consider this country their home. From Edmonton, Lauren Boothby, City News.
2026 is already being marked by several crises that are rapidly destroying Canada's once strong immigration consensus. Millions of people in Canada are currently on expired or soon to expire temporary visas. The Liberals have no credible plan to remove them, while simultaneously inviting hundreds of thousands more temporary residents into the country. Millions of people are now residing in Canada with temporary permits that have expired or will expire this year, and many are unwilling to leave. This incredible circumstance is a direct result of the Liberals issuing massive, unsustainable numbers of temporary resident permits in a very short period of time. Adding to the severity of this crisis are 500,000 undocumented persons in the country. Compounding this issue is last year's immigration levels plan, where the Liberals announced that they are going to issue hundreds of thousands more temporary permits in 2026. The Liberals predicated these levels on the assumption that millions of people with expired or expiring visas will leave. This isn't fair to anyone. Undocumented persons are forced to work on a black market for labor, while Canadians are facing an acute housing shortage, a healthcare system failure, and youth jobs crisis. Making the challenge of resolving this crisis worse, the Liberals did not implement an exit tracking system prior to inviting millions of temporary residents to the country, nor did they reform the asylum system to reduce the incentives for people with expiring visas to abuse the system in order to stay in Canada. On this matter, our call to action is this. In order for Canada to rebuild its consensus for immigration, the law must be enforced. Temporary has to mean temporary. So Conservatives call upon the Liberal government to table a plan by the end of this month to tell Canadians how they plan to enforce existing Canadian law and get millions of people with expiring visas to leave Canada this year.
Alright guys, welcome back once again to the channel. I hope you're having a great time wherever you are watching this episode from now. In today's episode, new reports reveals that over 2.1 immigrants in Canada, they are on expired visas, or their visas are expiring in some few weeks. And apparently, they are not willing to leave Canada. They are working freely, working freely, and living freely in Canada like a normal Canadians. And apparently, some Canadians are outraged about this because they are saying temporary visas means temporary. Temporary means temporary. If your visa expires, please leave the country to give way for new immigrants and to also give way for the housing crisis in Canada. You know, there is too much immigrants in Canada and they are struggling to get houses because Canada is bringing in more immigrants than it can accommodate in terms of their housing, their housing system or the available houses. Canada is bringing in more immigrants and apparently they are witnessing an immigration overload in Canada. And in this video, let's check more about these facts and these statistics and these new reports. Then we shall be talking about it.
It would take the government 233 years to deport all illegal immigrants from Canada because right now there's about 4.9 million illegal or soon to be expired immigrants, according to Michelle Rumpel-Garner. And the Liberals are deporting around 21,000 a year. But think about it. I know some of them will renew their visas, but we're bringing in 300,000 people a year. More of those people will become illegal immigrants than actually get deported. And the IRCC doesn't really know who's here illegally. They kind of just hope you leave by yourself when you're expired.
Immigration now has, I think, forever changed our country for the worse.
Canadians are completely overwhelmed with what's happening with immigration. We touched on it a little bit. It's unsustainable at this point. Under this Liberal government, we have seen, this Liberal government and the previous one, so many people enter this country where we can't sustain it.
So immigration now has, I think, forever changed our country for the worse. Like, our healthcare is worse as a result of it.
And we start deporting. Oh, let's take a look at the deporting. Today, Pierre Poilievre came out and said asylum claimants and non-citizens convicted of serious crimes will be barred from Canada and, oh yeah, deported. If he speaks like this, that is how conservatives are going to win the election. We want real change in this country, and he is speaking our language.
At this point, Canada, we're the land of the foreigners. We care more about foreigners than we care about Canadians. I don't know how people can continue to see things like this happen, yet they still vote for the Liberal Party. You have young Canadians who are sad and depressed entering the workforce because they know home ownership is a pipe dream unless they get help. This is not normal. You have people that have children that are in their 30s, 40s, and 50s that are struggling to get by because the bills keep piling up. Everything is getting more expensive. You continue to flood this country with foreigners that are taking jobs. So now you got to support your younger children who can't find a part-time job as a teenager or as a young adult. And then you have older Canadians that can barely get by on their pension because it doesn't cover the cost of living. And while all of this is happening, Canadians are struggling. You have foreigners here that are leeching off of the system. They get all of the social benefits. And that is not how it should work when you're coming to a country. When my grandparents came here, they had to work, they had to contribute. They did not live better lives than Canadians when they first came here. And that's how it should be. The people showing up now, half of them are living better lives than Canadians who have been here for their entire life. What kind of country is this where we prioritize newcomers over people that have lived here their entire life and their families have lived here for generations? And when you call out this stupidity, they think you're the nut. They think you're the one that has hate in their heart. No, I have a brain. That's what that's called. Not hate. It's called the brain. And this is unsustainable. Canadians deserve better. This is a joke. And our country is just going down the toilet with policies like this.
Canada doesn't even run criminal background checks on applicants for most visas. While in fact, if these immigrants need asylum at all, often they need asylum from law enforcement in their own countries, which is why they're coming here or coming to Canada in this case. And this is a point that the Foreign Affairs Minister of India made himself publicly a few months ago. Even he's looking at Canada and wondering what the hell they're doing. And he warned that they are importing a lot of criminals from his country with no vetting whatsoever.
Number of gangland people, number of people with organized crime links from Punjab have been made welcome in Canada. We have been telling Canada, saying, look, these are wanted criminals from India. You have given them visas. They have come, many of them in false documentation. And yet you allow them to live there. If you decide to import for political purposes people with very dubious, actually very negative background, there will be issues.
I'd like to just remind everybody that we could actually live in nice communities and nice, safe societies if we just put people in prison who deserve to be there and we kept them there. I know it's a crazy concept, and I know a lot of people are going to disagree with me, but hear me out. There is a large amount of crimes that are committed in the United States, Canada, and across the globe that are committed by repeat offenders. Stories like this one, where 4 men broke into a home in a Vancouver suburb and tried to burglarize it with a firearm. Men who have already been caught committing horrific crimes and have shown a great disregard for obeying the law. Here's the thing, some people can be rehabilitated, some people can get better. There are those who will never get better because, quite frankly, they don't want to. Those people, we shouldn't be forced to live with them in polite society because it's the empathetic thing to do. You might be asking the question, well, what do we do about it? Well, let me just introduce you to the little country of El Salvador. A country that had some of the highest homicide rates in the entire world now has some of the lowest. Want to know how they did it? They put all violent criminals in prison for life.
I got mixed feelings about this because if you trust this guy, which I don't, the feds expect 4.9 million people to leave Canada next year. That's 12% of our population, which will probably mean affordable housing again and affordable rents, and that should ease the massive strain we have in our healthcare system, among other resources that are being utilized. Fingers crossed.
The problem is, for the first time in Canadian history, we have over 3 million temporary residents in the country, and the Liberals are still issuing record level of more temporary resident permits. So now you combine that with the Liberals' broken humanitarian claims system, a protracted appeal system, and their reluctance to deport. What's happening is that most temporary residents effectively stay here indefinitely. Fairness must be restored. Will the minister update our outdated laws and require at least one parent to be a citizen or permanent resident to qualify for automatic citizenship?
The Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Member has her facts wrong. This country and this government will not create a two-tier system, and we will never penalize the children for the children in this country that are born here. Thank you.
Failure. We need to restore order and fairness to the system, and today there are over 3 million temporary residents in Canada, an unprecedented 7.2% of Canada's population. Wow. There's no plan to get them to leave, and this is straining housing, healthcare, and jobs. Now some temporary residents are exploiting Canada's outdated automatic citizenship rules to try and overstay their visas. Will the minister align with most other countries in the world and require at least one parent to be a citizen or permanent resident to qualify for automatic citizenship?
Canada has a massive immigration problem. We have millions of visas expiring in Canada, and nearly half of all Canadians believe that mass deportations are necessary to stop the unauthorized immigration that's coming into the country. And the immigration minister that created this mess, Mark Miller, he said we didn't turn down the taps fast enough. That's the admission of the Liberal government opening up Canada to millions of immigrants, 3 million in just 3 years. And as many of you know, I've been covering this for years, and I've said it before, and it's finally making it to mainstream media where our infrastructure can't keep up with the population demand. And despite warnings, many guest workers, temporary workers, and international students are in many ways showing that they have no intention of leaving the country when their visas expire. Mark Miller admitted that something needs to be done, but they're relying on people leaving voluntarily. Now, the Conservative government got information from the Immigration Department, and they said that the number of temporary visas that are going to expire in 2025 is 4.9 million. More than 1 out of every 10 residents in Canada is going to have their visa expire this year. Now, the federal government won't admit to that huge number, but they've acknowledged that the visas of 500,000 temporary migrants have already ended, and they haven't left the country. Meanwhile, the CBSA, the Canada Border Service Agency, they have a wanted list of 30,000 people, and they have no idea where these people are. Now, there was an economist that Justin Trudeau brought in to discuss the special migration update. His name's Mike Moffat, and he said that the number of people on temporary visas should gradually be reduced to just 1 million, that we currently have way too much with the over 4 million people in the country. And that would reduce Canada's population growth rate to 0, especially since it's been running at more than 3% each year. Think of the whole city of Markham and nearly the whole city of Vaughan. Maybe slightly less than that, but those two combined Imagine all of those people having their visas expire. That's how many people are in the country on a temporary basis and have no intention of leaving. And to top it all off, Canada took in 817,000 new immigrants in the first 4 months of 2025. Unreal.
When you overstay your visa, you have 90 days to restore your status. After that, things get complicated. Problem number 1, you can't apply for a study, work, or visitor visa from inside Canada anymore. Yes, there's something called a TRP, but it takes many months and rarely gets approved. It's not something to count on. Problem number 2, if you leave Canada, your chances of getting another visa later are much lower. Overstaying gets recorded and immigration officers will hold it against you. The longer you stay without status, the worse it looks. So if your visa is about to expire, don't wait. Talk to a professional and understand your options. Bad advice or false hope can do real damage, and most of the time, it's hard to undo. Like and follow for more immigration tips.
You know, in as much as ICE in the United States is doing brutal things, some actions can be recommended in other countries. I'm not saying that I'm an ICE supporter. I'm just saying that if you're an immigrant in a country, you should know that you have to live by the policies. You see, the Canadian government says that over 2.1 million people are on expired visas and they are not willing to leave. Now, a country has given you free will to live under a temporary visa in Canada. When it expires, we expect you as a responsible immigrant to at least renew it. If you don't want to renew it, then go back to your country. And then when you want to come back to Canada, you shall reapply. By doing so, you are releasing the houses, releasing the services, and all the funds to be used in other areas. But unfortunately, these immigrants, some of them are hard-headed. They don't want to do so. So when Canadians call for mass deportation, like the way ICE is doing in Canada, we are seeing that it is necessary for such kind of people. But if you are a responsible immigrant, you shouldn't be doing this. Temporary means temporary. Anything that has a beginning has an ending. You had your visa all through. Canada has given you free will to do anything in Canada, but under a specific period of time. If they say your time is over, ask the government or the relevant authorities to renew your stay. They will allow that. They allow that. Renewal of visas are there. But now you overstay your welcome. A real dancer knows when to leave the stage. But some of these immigrants, not every immigrant is doing this, by the way. We have very good immigrants. Some of these immigrants are criminals. They are committing crimes in Canada. They are being arrested, and apparently they don't respect the Canadians' jail. They don't respect the Canadian law system because they know even if we get arrested and they realize we are immigrants, we won't be jailed anyway. So they overstay. They know we can't even get deported. So it means that they are doing this intentionally. And this is outraging Canadians. Canadians are saying we need more houses. We need more houses. And by doing so, it means that we have to deport some of these people who have overstayed their welcome. So when you see these people demanding for mass deportation in Canada, they are not targeting every immigrants, by the way. As I've said, we have very good immigrants. In fact, some of these immigrants are helping develop Canada. They are doctors, engineers, professors, teachers, lecturers. They are everywhere and doing very great things for the Canadian economy and for Canada. But apparently, some of these immigrants who are not willing to follow the law, who are not willing to assimilate, who are not willing to renew their visas, they are making every immigrant in Canada look like bad people. So, when Canadians demand mass deportation, they demand mass deportation on such people, the lawbreakers who commit crime, who have overstayed their visas, fake asylum seekers, fake refugees, those who are committing crimes and fraudulent activities in Canada. These are the kind of people Canadians are demanding to be deported, because when your visa expires, then it means that your stay is over and now you have to redo your stay or go back home and then come back to seek greener pastures under a new renewed visa, which is actually temporary. But it seems like Well, they are just this 2.1. They say they are not willing to leave. So it means that they don't even respect the Canadian laws and customs and rules and regulations. And I always tell my immigrants, and I will say this again and again and again for the immigrants who are watching this video, we are all in Rome. When you go to Rome, Canada is like Rome. When you go to Rome, do what the Romans do. Exactly. Do what the Romans do. Do what the Canadian government requires you to do. If your visa has expired, it means that you have overstayed your welcome in Canada. They don't want you in Canada because your visa has expired. They want you to renew or go back home and then reapply. Don't overstay your welcome. And if you have overstayed your welcome, ask the government, I haven't achieved what I wanted in this country, and I really, really want to achieve the goals or to fetch the greener pastures that I had come for. Therefore, I'm requesting you guys to renew my visa before it expires. But if you just sit down, wait for your visa to expire, then it has expired, you just work freely, you don't care, you haven't renewed it, it means that you don't do what the Romans do. And when the Romans see that you are not doing what they do, they might execute you. I mean, they might deport you. They might want you to get deported. They might send you back home. And that's totally wrong, guys. Tell me what you think in the comment section about these claims in the comments, and see you in the next video.